everyone, I'm Kayla and we're here with Emily Gaddis, who is a missionary and consultant in training with Wycliff Bible Translators. And Emily will be going to Nigeria this fall.
That's planned.
Yes, and that's super exciting. But Emily also grew up in Nigeria, so I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about that today. How did your family end up in Nigeria?
So there's actually a pretty cool story of how the Lord got my family over to Nigeria or involved in missions. So my mom had decided to be a missionary when she was 7 years old, and missionaries came to her church and shared about their experience, and she decided as a 7-year-old to be a missionary, which is awesome. So it's never too young to decide. And my dad became a Christian in college and then got interested in missions. So they both were going over to the mission field, but they started a family here in the States, and my dad was an associate pastor in Ashland at the time. And my dad talked about coming home one day, and he saw my mom holding me. I was only 6 weeks old, and my two brothers, older brothers, who were just a couple years old at the time, playing around inside the little white picket fence that he had built. And he said in his heart, I can never take these kids overseas because something might happen to them. And he said that he felt his heart harden towards God. And a couple of days later, I got diagnosed with bacterial spinal meningitis, and I had a 6-inch blood clot in my brain, and the pressure built up to where I went blind. And so we were at the Children's Hospital down the road in Medford, and at the time, my parents were asking people all over the Rogue Valley to pray that the Lord would heal me, and they were also asking people to come and encourage them with scripture, and they were just open to what the Lord wanted to say to them during this time. And so on one particular occasion, when my dad was in the NICU with me, he heard God say, Mark, those aren't your kids, those are my kids, and I give them to you one day at a time to love them and to take care of them. But when I want to take them home to be with me, that's my decision. And it's not the little white picket fence that you built, and it's not the hospital down the road that protects them. I protect them. And you need to get a move on your calling. And so after that, my parents decided they were going to start the process to join a mission. And the doctors at the time said, your daughter has a 2% chance that she will survive. And if by some miracle she survives, then she'll be a vegetable. She won't be able to talk or walk or feed herself. So there's nothing more that we can do, and you can take your baby home, try and make sure she doesn't cry, and if you're praying people, you can pray. And so that was really hard for my parents, as you can imagine. But people continued to pray, and some time later, my mom ran in and said, Mark, I think something's changed. Emily is moving. We need to take her back to the hospital. I think God healed her. And so they took me back to the hospital, and the doctor ran the scans, and he checked it 3 times to make sure it was the same child. And he said, there's no way this is the same child.
Wow.
Because even with the most minor meningitis, there's scarring in the brain. But I had the most severe type of meningitis, and there was not a trace that the sickness had been there.
Wow.
And the doctor said, it's like a hand came and wiped away all the sickness. And my parents were like, yep, it's the hand of God. So as you can see, I can now talk and walk, and the Lord completely healed me. And my parents, after that experience, my parents went to the mission field when I started the process, and went to the mission field when I was about 4 years old.
Wow.
And so we lived in Nigeria from 4 until 18 when I came back to the States for college.
Wow. So I can't even imagine what it must be like to grow up in another country, but what kind of interesting things happened over in Nigeria? I'm sure that you have quite a few stories.
Yeah. Well, I loved growing up in Nigeria. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to go back overseas someday. I have always loved learning about new cultures and new languages, and the Lord has just created such beautiful diversity all around the world. And it's just amazing how each time you get to know a new culture or language, or even a different individuals, you get to learn a little bit more about the God that we serve. And it's just awesome to see. So I also want to have a little disclaimer. I always tell these crazy stories about life in Nigeria. But, life in Nigeria, there are differences, of course, between life in Nigeria and life in the States. But there's a lot more similarities than you might think. So like a typical day, for instance, it depends on where you are, but if you're in the city, we've got roads, we've got electricity, we've got water, people go to the office, we've got normal work days, there's families get together and eat, they play sports, people have cell phones, we watch videos on the internet, people keep up on the latest shows, sometimes we get it a little bit later, or sometimes if it's pirated, you get it a little bit earlier. So that is also a thing. In the villages, it is a little bit more. It's a little different. So you might have like a dirt road, but a lot of the dirt roads are being paved. There are some challenges, like we've got lots of potholes, so it's a natural thing to drive into the other lane and then drive back before the car hits you. So that's just like a normal thing, because when the potholes get real big, you don't want to drive through them or it might hurt your car. And then our power goes on and off. So, but since that's normal, it's not as disastrous as it would be here in the States, where all the food would go bad and life kind of shuts down, because we're used to it. And so we get water from the city. In the city, we get water that comes, and then you fill up these big tanks. So if water doesn't come for a couple weeks, you've got water kind of saved up. So there's certain times when you use less water, take shorter showers, things like that. But in general, there's a lot of similarities as well. And so, yeah.
So you're not swimming with crocodiles every day?
No, definitely not. We have to drive 12 hours to a national park for that one.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah. So what are some fun stories? Well, when we were growing up, my brothers and my dad, our whole family loved camping and fishing. So the best place to go fishing was about 12, 13 hours away. Wow. And so when we were done with our final exams and it was time for Christmas, or I guess midterm exams, it's time for Christmas, we'd all load up in our truck and we'd drive the 12 hours there. And so you have to cross this river, but the ferry is just kind of like some boards that you have to drive your car onto, and there's 2 canoes on either side, and they're filling up with water, so there's a guy in the canoe trying to get the water out faster than it's coming in. So you have to drive onto that and then cross the river. And on one particular occasion, we had listened to Adventures in Odyssey about how a boat or a ferry the motor stopped and they were drifting out into the ocean, and then we drove out onto this ferry and the motor stopped, and we were all praying real hard. So that was a crazy story, but the motor started up again and we got to our fishing spot. Good. So at this fishing spot, there's lots of wildlife. In fact, when you check in, they give you an armed guard to protect you. And I guess also to make sure that you're not like poaching. That might be part of it. Maybe. Yeah. So basically there's crocodiles in the water, but it gets really hot and we want to swim, so we have a lookout, and then we go swim in the water, and if the crocodile comes, then you shout and everybody gets out. Not our smartest moment, but when it's so hot and it's the only water that you can swim in because it's fast moving, I have nightmares of crocodiles now.
I bet you do.
Yeah.
So you just swam knowing that there could be a crocodile under you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That must have been pretty hot. You must have been really, really hot.
Yeah. It was, it's not the smartest thing, but it was so much fun and get you like your adrenaline going and... And then on that same fishing trip, so part of it is fish fever also, because these fish can get up to 200 pounds. So we catch the babies, which are, anywhere from 18 to 50 pounds. And, they're about this big or so.
Wow.
And so they're called giwanrua, which means elephants of the water, because they get so big.
Whoa.
So we usually go fishing for those. And but the best place to go fishing is right where the hippos are. We've been told that they can't get to us because their legs are too short, and so they can't get up onto the bank where we're fishing. But it's still a little scary because sometimes they're not happy that we're getting the fish.
Yeah.
And so they're, chomping at the water and stuff like that.
Wow. Well, and aren't they the fastest animal on the planet?
I don't think on the planet.
No?
I think cheetahs are. Well,
at least in the water. I think they're the fastest in the water.
but they are fast on land too, which is I don't know. Basically, we don't get in the water and there's lots of praying involved, and
it's not like Tarzan. No.
No.
You're not singing around with the hippos.
No.
Don't you have you told me a story one time about something to do with Oreos? What was that?
Oh,
that happened?
Yeah. So there's this company. Okay, so there's this company called Nasco, and it makes these cookies, which are like not quite Oreos.
Okay.
Actually, you were thinking about a different story, but I'll tell you this one too.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is called. So they're called Nascos. Nasco cornflakes and other things, and then we had these cookies, and I'm kind of regretting telling this story now, but I've already started, so I'm just gonna go. And one time we opened the package, and unfortunately, don't know how it happened, there was a maggot in one of them.
Oh,
and so at that point, my brother was like, I lost my appetite.
Yeah.
And so we took the cookies, and for some reason, we threw them out the window, and we accidentally hit a kid on the back of the head with it. And he turned around and glared at the man behind him because he thought that the guy behind him had done it. And my dad was laughing so hard that he drove into the other lane of traffic, and we almost had a head-on collision.
Oh my goodness!
So, but then he drove back, and then So
that
basically,
was in the car.
That was in the car. Yeah,
okay.
Sorry, that was in the car.
Yeah.
So basically, a maggot almost killed our whole family.
So wow.
That was one story, and then the other one, I think you were talking about real Oreos.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get Oreos and a lot of American candy and peanut butter. Peanut butter is like,
I bet.
Oh my goodness. If you get Skippy peanut butter in your stocking at Christmas,
you're rich.
You are rich. You are good to go, man. So we had Oreos. I think it was around my birthday, and we were at another family vacation. We don't take vacations like all that often, but all the best stories are happening at the vacation. So anyways, so we were at this place called Yankari where there's all these baboons, and there's just like troops of baboons that meander through, and they're always trying to get into your house and steal your food. So there was this one time where we had gotten some Oreos from the States. So each of us had like 1 or 2 Oreos, so they're very precious. And this big, huge alpha baboon came up and stole Blake, my older brother's, Oreo cookie from him. And he tried it, and he's like, oh, that's good. So he wanted more.
No.
So he started pushing us kids out of the way to try and get into the house so he could get the rest of the food. And my dad was filming at the time, and he...
Thanks, Dad.
No, well, he was in the way, too, but he saw that this alpha baboon, they're big.
I bet.
They're, like, huge. Was pushing us kids, and I was only like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 maybe, something like that, so we were young. So this baboon's trying to push us kids out of the way, and so my dad kicks it in the ribs to get it away from us, and it like snarls at him, and like it looks like it's about to bite his leg.
Ew.
And so my dad puffs up and snarls back,
and
the alpha baboon like walks away.
Oh my goodness.
So my dad is the alpha.
That's
the alpha baboon.
That's so crazy that was just like normal. Like, oh yeah, there's baboons around here. That's cool. Like I would freak out. That's
it's not
incredible.
Normal for everywhere. It's just when we go on on vacation, it's usually to the 1 or 2 like national parks in the area. So I guess kind of like the national parks here, there's deer and stuff like that in the forest that you wouldn't see necessarily walking around your neighborhood unless you live in Ashland.
True. Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. Well, that is quite the childhood, and that's awesome that you're gonna go back. Are you excited to go back?
I am so excited.
How long has it been since you've been back there?
So 2012 was when I graduated. So it's been around 7 years. I did go back for 2 weeks at Christmas one year.
Cool.
So I have been back once.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to the food. Excited to be with the people.
Oh yes. When you head back and you embark on this journey, how can we stay connected with you?
So a great way to stay connected is to get email updates. I send them out about once a month, and they have updates on where I am in the world and what's happening, prayer requests and praises, and then stories about either what God's doing through Bible translation around the world or something that He's recently taught me through experience or something like that. So people can email me, and I would love to send those to you. And then feel free to email me prayer requests, praises, and just how you guys are doing as well, because I want to stay connected. And hopefully I'll be back in the States in about 3.5 years is the plan. And people can also come and visit if you'd like to.
True.
It's true.
We can go meet the baboons.
Oh, I will take you to see those baboons. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to tell us those stories, Emily.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. Bye.